No. So at 7:42 on the December 16th, so I'll call the meeting of the Conservation Commission to order. Um, and as in administrative notes, um, I'd like to ask Kate to just keep time on us tonight. Um, and the public comment will go beyond the public time, Kate, that we had initially thought, so that won't be necessary to track. And I've also asked Diana to take minutes for this meeting. So the first item on the agenda is public comment.
I'm sorry, just before we get started, because this is a virtual meeting of the commission, you need to do a roll call of the commission members.
Who are present?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
My calling them off by name is.
Either you can do that and people can say present or however people want to say their own names, that's fine too.
Okay. Barbara Hagan Smith.
Present.
Kate Rosen.
Present.
Valerie Hollings.
King. Present.
King, excuse me.
Present.
And Sharon Descott.
Present.
Paul Harrigan. And Diana McCarthy Burkham.
Present, thank you.
Thank you.
And does David Lobar get included in that too?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. The first item on the agenda, as I said, is public comment. We have more than 15 comments that came in. I'll read them into the record, and I will.
So I'd like to add something to the agenda. I'd like to add the Arbor Haven proposal, rejection memo, and process to the agenda to immediately follow public comment.
I second.
Okay. As I recall, that is a non-debatable motion, not necessary. 2/3 voting to add item to the agenda. So we will take a roll call vote. A second. Paul? The motion is to add the item to the agenda to discuss for the Arbor Haven proposal letter and the process. Paul, you want to finish that for me, by which it was?
I'd like to add the Arbor Haven proposal rejection memo and the process that we undertook to the agenda, and to have that immediately follow the public comment.
Okay. So we will vote on adding it. Paul? Your vote?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Looks like Diana is next on my screen.
Aye.
Okay. Barbara?
Aye.
And Kate?
Aye.
Okay. And the motion.
No, Valerie, you need to ask Valerie.
Oh, Valerie, excuse me. Sorry.
Aye. That's okay. Aye.
Okay. All right. And I will vote against that, and the motion passes. So we will do that after the public comment. So moving on to public comment, and I will again ask everybody perhaps to mute And I will also beg pardon of all the people who submitted comments for a mispronunciation of their names. Um, so the first comment is from Diana Blythe. Kudos and thank you to the Conservation Commission for rejecting the Arbor Haven proposal, and in doing so, expressing the shared sentiments of so many concerned Woodbridge citizens. Your efforts to protect a unique and invaluable land parcel from radical overdevelopment that would have long-term negative impacts on our town is most appreciated. The next comment is from Martha Gurman. Greetings. I would like to commend the members of the Conservation Commission for their well-reasoned and fearlessly honest assessment of the Arbor Haven development proposal. Their letter to the Board of Selectmen is of an estimable value in guiding plans for this special property. The letter ought to be read by all Woodbridge residents. Thank you. The next comment is from Abby Santamaria. Dear Conservation Commission, thank you for rejecting the Arbor Haven proposal. I write in full support on behalf of my family, residents of Johnson Road. We enjoy family time on the peaceful trails of the old golf course, and my 7-year-old son especially loves bird watching. The place is a sanctuary for many of our neighbors, and we can't imagine living here with it gone and a construction zone followed by a development in its place. Imagine, excuse me, this following comment is from Jim Urbano. Imagine the historic farmhouse at Center and Pease Roads demolished and replaced by a subdivision. It's now off Center Farm, a food source for the public good. Imagine a sprawl of townhouses obliterating the 85-acre Town Line Farm on Baldwin Road, the protection of which was completed by the Land Trust. Or a development in place of Massaro Farm, or the demolition of the old South School on Johnson Road, or a firehouse on the hayfield at Center and Beecher Road. These threats to our natural and historic resources were faced and overcome by the Conservation Commission under Kathy Gartland and then Maria Kane, and the public good is richer for it. It's gratifying to see that you, in like manner, have opposed the Arbor Haven development. The value of that open land to the mental and physical well-being of town residents is critical, as was made evident during this pandemic. Thank you for standing for the good of the people and of Woodbridge and the greater region. Following comments from Georgia Chavant. It is addressed to me, to Woodbridge Conservation Commission and the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen. I'm a 15-plus year board member of the Woodbridge Park Association, and I've lived in Woodbridge for over 27 years. Prior to my move to Woodbridge, I lived in 12 different states, so I am proud to call Woodbridge my true home. We chose to move here for proximity to our work locations, the excellent school system, and the beautiful rural community, which we have grown to love and enjoy. I write to you in support of your decision to reject the Arbor Haven proposal for all the reasons you have so eloquently described in the attached memorandum to the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen. I hope this message will also be shared with the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen, as that is my reason for sending this today. As you have described, the loss of this beautiful property to development would be, in my opinion, one of the worst decisions our town could ever make. Property was purchased by the town, the property was purchased by the town taxpayers over 12 years ago. It is my estimate, and I may not have this total correct, that taxpayers have spent over $5 million towards the final purchase of this property already. So the $11 million offered by the developers is not really a true $11 million, since $5 million has already been spent. The developers are paying back almost half their costs for what we have already spent. I absolutely agree that we must find ways to increase tax revenue for our town. Our high mill rate is discouraging individuals from seeking to live in our town and also deterring our seniors from living here. Since I am one of those seniors, I will admit that purchasing an over 55 home on this property for upwards of $400,000 to $500,000 is not affordable for us. So I do not see that many Woodbridge seniors will choose this option. Instead, I fear that we may have an influx of seniors from more affluent communities. Do we want this? And if seniors like us do move to this community, then our home could potentially sell to young families with children entering the school system. The Woodbridge Park Association and the Woodbridge Land Trust have offered a grant of conservation restriction on 145 acres of this land to be protected in perpetuity. There would still be acres remaining to generate town revenue. I realize this is not the same financial offering that Arbor Haven has presented, but Arbor Haven's proposal requires significant town expenditures as your memo describes. I agree what we need to study are ways to improve our affordable housing options as well as town tax revenue. I'm sure this has been mentioned before, but could we seek state or national grant funding to refurbish the property that has long been vacant to meet those needs? Other New England towns have done this. Should we destroy this gorgeous piece of property for this purpose? Tax revenue and affordable housing options. Your letter has outlined so many other reasons why selling this beautiful land to developers is not in the best interest of our town, and you highlight the environmental impact. I would also like to note the contribution of this land to carbon sequestration. I'm not a trained environmentalist, but soil, trees, and shrubs and bodies of water all aid in the removal in sequestration in parentheses of carbon from the atmosphere. Certainly, those natural resources remove carbon more readily than asphalt shingles and pavement would do once 100 houses are built. Not to mention potential flooding of low-lying areas surrounding this property, as has already happened in the past. If each home has residents with at least 1 or 2 cars, what about the contribution to traffic and pollution? And last but not least, I would ask that each member of the Board of Selectmen drive by this property, as I do every day, and picture bulldozed land, 100-foot trees chopped down, rock walls destroyed, and 100 houses or condos perched on the rolling hills. What if the entire project turns out to be an eyesore and a town problem for years to come? Would an elected member of the Board of Selectmen be remembered as having made the decision to sell out this historical piece of land? Once it is gone forever. We have all contributed a significant amount of money to save this land thanks to the foresight of the former First Selectman Ed Sheehy. Do we want to destroy what has become a most beautiful piece of property for which we can all be proud? Let's put our hearts and heads together to come up with additional solutions to solve our town's financial concerns. To destroy this piece of property is not and will never be in the town's best interest. Next comment is from Adrian Michi Smith. I have read your rejection letter regarding the proposed Arbor Haven project at the Country Club of Woodbridge. Thank you for your insightful analysis and your efforts to protect this important public space. I heartily agree with your conclusions. Last week, I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting. Your rejection letter states the town purchased the property in 2009 to protect it from development. So even to consider selling the property to a developer to build condos and houses is contrary to the residents' wishes and the town's strategy in purchasing the property. I thought this was common knowledge, so I was shocked to hear our first select woman suggest at the Board of Selectmen meeting last week that the property was not purchased to protect it from development. What I would like to address is my own experience at the property. My husband and I regularly walk our dog at the CCW. Within the last couple of years, the property has grown in nicely. We see all kinds of wildlife there, deer, foxes, and all types of birds. Earlier this week, as we were walking around the pond, I was looking for the resident heron, which often suns itself there. All of a sudden, we heard a noise, and the heron flew right up in front of us. It was majestic, and we estimate that it had about an 8-foot wingspan. A few minutes later, we must have disturbed a flock of mallards because they too flew right up in front of us with their green heads. We generally stick to paths, but one day we stumbled upon a bird, perhaps a grouse, that was roosting on the ground in the grasses. There are fields and fields of milkweed, which is important for the propagation of butterflies. Our son-in-law loves to birdwatch there. Children sled there in the winter and fished there at other times. This property has become a gem in this town. It would be heartbreaking to see it develop. I hope I hope that the Board of Selectmen who appointed you to advise the support a proposal. Essentially, a lifelong Woodbridge resident with deeply rooted connections to our community, I am generally dismayed that the development of the former Woodbridge Country Club property is even a consideration. The people of Woodbridge voted to purchase this property in 2009 for the explicit purpose of protecting the land. This is clear, documented, and undisputed. Notwithstanding the consistent desire of third parties to develop this property, there is no conversation to be had here as it is incongruous with the desire of the people and the town strategy in purchasing the property. I applaud the Conservation Commission for keeping true to its charter and, more importantly, remaining vigilant because I fear one day a distracted citizenry may inadvertently allow development of this open space. The next comment is from Virginia Snyder. I have been a resident of Woodbridge for 36 years. I fully support the Conservation Commission's opposition to the Arbor Haven development proposal. The WCC's position is accurate and covers the issues in detail. I've historically seen many reasons for supporting open space. In short, they include: 1, quality of life. Open space provides recreation, cleaner air and water, and less noise. 2, climate change mitigation. This has become a critical current issue vital for the future of the planet. 3, property value increase and related economic benefits. The Conservation Commission has done an excellent job of showing the economic losses incurred with the Arbor Haven proposal. There have been many studies historically that have shown the fiscal benefit of maintaining open space, farms, and parks. We have one example in Woodbridge itself with the Massaro Farm, where the community has benefited in many ways from the generosity of the Massaro family in protecting this land. Realtors have mentioned the farm as an asset when dealing with prospective home buyers in Woodbridge. Further, the Trust for Public Land, TPL, has provided me with some of the current studies showing the economic benefit to communities that protect open space, farms, and parks. I've included an excerpt from one such study in 2013 in Massachusetts. There have been over the past 50 many other similar studies. The excerpt is quoted below from material from TPL. Feel free to contact me for more of the information they sent me. Quotation from TPL follows, citing the return on investments in parks and open space in Massachusetts. Studies have consistently shown that residential land contributes less in taxes than it receives in municipal services, representing a net loss to local governments. The national median across 151 communities over 25 years is that for every dollar paid in local taxes, the average home requires $1.16 in services. I fully support the Conservation Commission's decision to oppose the Arbor Haven development and would vote against such development in referendum if necessary. I thank you very much for this wise decision and applaud its accuracy and thoroughness. Next comment is from Andrea Urbano. And the header there is to the Town of Woodbridge's Conservation Commission for consideration by the town's Board of Selectmen. Please consider this written word in support of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission's decision to reject Haven's proposal for developing Woodbridge Country Club property. to reduce
Tim,
taxpayer burden and maintain open.
Tim, we've lost you.
Proposed 62 restrict. Ahead.
Did we take them? We've lost them?
So when 30, 40, disproportionate public
It may be worth everyone turning their cameras off to see if we can improve the bandwidth.
to and well suited for additional to acre the likelihood of strengthening our town's finances and environmental quality even more. The right homeowner association will be collected and cost of services. 50 acres of proposed open space contains high percentage of resources and is highly fragmented. Types of open space provide to intact tracts of land. The open space will be available to the public, but it's not for the immense stress and degradation of public spaces. It's a built area. Beautiful underrepresented landscape while also protecting and promoting healthy water supply, providing clean air, supporting mental health, well-being, and nature population.
Tim? Tim, can you hear us? Did he get logged out completely?
No.
He's no longer showing up on the panelist list.
Okay, so we need to pause the meeting.
We do that. I will call Tim.
Poor guy, he was just halfway through those.
This is Cora.
This is Cora.
Congratulations. Oh my goodness, look at those cheeks.
Oh, so Tim's back on.
Okay,
Okay.
back to business.
All right. Sorry, Tim, I was entertaining in your absence.
Tim, we lost you for a while there. Can you hear us?
Maybe unmute Tim.
I am on mute.
So can you hear us now?
I can.
So we lost you for a while during your comments.
Oh. I was head down reading comments. Does anybody recall the last comment that I read that you could hear?
Andrea,
There was a woman who quoted a study from Massachusetts. And then after that, you started to break up.
right, when
Okay.
you started, Andrea Urbano broke up.
Okay. Okay, so can I assume that Virginia Snyder had a quote? And was that one, do you believe intact, or do I need to read the last part of that? Her last words were, "I fully support the Conservation Commission's decision to oppose Arbor Haven and will
Believe
be
that was
voted
okay.
against it in referendum if necessary."
Right, that was.
We got that part. I think that was the last one.
Okay, so there's just one, the letter from Andrea Urbano, and I will start there and read on. And I will look up after every comment now. I do not see. Are we having problems with anybody else? Because I don't see pictures now. People may have taken their video off, and that's
We
fine.
turned off our video to try to help put you back on.
Okay, good. I appreciate it. Thank you. So picking an idle, perhaps our video team can edit some of this out for length, but we'll deal with that after. So the next comment is from Andrea Urbano. This is to the Woodbridge Conservation Commission for consideration by the town's Board of Selectmen. Please consider this written word in support of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission's decisions to reject Arbor Haven's proposal for developing the Woodbridge Country Club property. This development will further burden taxpayers. 39 separate studies conducted across New England show that for every dollar of property tax paid, residential properties require $1.16. These studies find that open space is not a tax burden on municipalities. On average, open space requires only 36 cents of municipal services for every dollar of property tax paid. Woodbridge residents are being misled. The proposal is claimed to reduce taxpayer burden and maintain open space. The proposed 62 age-restricted homes have deed limits. So in 30 to 40 years, those homes are subject to younger families who require disproportionately more public services. Based on our new and unprecedented zoning regulations, the proposed number of homes will be subject to, and many well suited for additional units, up to 14 per acre where appropriate, increasing the likelihood of stressing our town's finances and environmental quality even more. Though light homeowner association dues will be collected, it remains unclear if these would be enough and would last long enough to cover the costs of services. The 50 acres of proposed open space contain a high percentage of impervious surfaces and is highly fragmented. These types of open spaces provide dismal services relative to intact tracts of land. Though the open space would be available to the public, let us not forget about the immense stress and degradation our public spaces already faced in the thick of COVID and continue to face. Reducing available area not only threatens the health of our natural systems, but is also a public health concern. The current property benefits townspeople by providing a safe, beautiful, and underrepresented landscape to enjoy year-round, while also storing the sequestering carbon, protecting and promoting healthy water supply, providing clean air, supporting mental health and well-being, and wildlife and pollinator populations. Arbor Haven's proposal does not have a defined or clear environmental impact statement, nor does it contain a plan to limit the development's carbon footprint. This is not acceptable. The Woodbridge Country Club is one of the town's largest remaining tracts of green space. It would be short-sighted to develop and fragment it. Not only would we not achieve the financial relief we seek, but we would lose a historic haven. We have another option. Let's instead support the Woodbridge Land Trust and Woodbridge Parks Association's joint proposal. This is the only current option to generate income while preserving the ecological, economic, cultural, and social services the land currently provides. Next comment is from David Schneider. As a Woodbridge resident for many years, I strongly support the decision by the Conservation Commission to reject the Arbor Haven proposal. I attach my recent letter to the editor of the Woodbridge Town News that sets out an additional objection to the Arbor proposal on the ground that it will lead to decreased property values. And the attachment dated November 30th, 2021, letter to the editor, Woodbridge Town News. Dear editor, and with bulleted points, Woodbridge is the only town bordering New Haven that is not overdeveloped. This unique feature and its rural feeling make Woodbridge a desirable place to live, increasing the value of residential homes. The Arbor Haven proposal would undermine what makes Woodbridge special and would drive down residential property values. This is merely one reason among many others why the Arbor Haven proposal should be rejected. Do not be blinded by the siren song of easy money. The Arbor Haven proposal is not good for the town or for Woodbridge homeowners. Next comment is from Kathy Wick. I'm writing to submit comments for the Conservation Commission meeting 12/16. I fully support the Commission's memo rejecting the Arbor Haven proposal. I would also like to officially submit the attached paper from the Highstead Foundation, the economic case for conservation, that summarizes 39 studies showing that open space is financially beneficial to towns and residential residential development is not. The next comment is from Chris Dickerson. I support the Woodbridge Conservation Commission's rejection of the Arbor Haven housing proposal for the Country Club of Woodbridge property. I feel strongly that the CCW property should remain substantially as open space. This is a historic and environmentally significant asset to the town of Woodbridge, and I feel that the town should recognize its value. Any additional development on the CCW property would destroy a beautiful ecosystem. The next comment is from Jeff Hughes. I applaud the Conservation Commission's rejection of the Arbor Haven proposal. This proposal is a short-sighted overdevelopment that would negatively impact our beautiful town. I'm disappointed that our elected officials would even consider and actively promote this type of large-scale development on such a unique piece of property. Once this land is sold, it is lost forever. The next comment is from Ryan Mills. A heartfelt thank you to the members of the commission for your recent recommendation not to endorse Arbor Haven's proposal for the WCC property. My family moved to Woodbridge for its historic, tranquil green spaces and quality schools. Your report rightly recognized the terrible environmental impact this project would bring upon a founding father's historic property and the financial loss the town and school district would ultimately incur. As the pandemic continues, our family, along with many others, will continue to safely enjoy the beautiful WCC property, even as it gives refuge to many endangered species our kids spend their school days learning about and being empowered to protect. Your recommendation reinforces what they learn all day at Beecher Road School about being good caretakers of the earth, so thank you. The next comment is from Sarah McLaughlin. Good afternoon. Please have this email serve as our support to the recent Conservation Commission's decision to reject the recent Arbor Haven proposal. Development of this property is something many have been following it, and it is imperative we take our time and weigh the pros and cons. To quote a favorite movie of mine, Gone with the Wind, Gerald O'Hara, you mean to tell me, Katie or Scarlett O'Hara, that Tara, that land means nothing to you? Why, land is the only thing worth working for, worth fighting for, worth dying for, as it's the only thing that lasts. What we decide to do with this land needs to benefit generations, not just the here and now. I commend the commission on their hard work, diligence, and dedication to such an important decision. The next comment is from Richard Fursilius. I have been involved in open space protection and conservation in Woodbridge for over 25 years. One of the most important parcels I have worked with others in securing forever open space status is the present Country Club of Woodbridge property. This parcel is significant, even preeminent in its significance, due not only to its open space, but also for its incredible history. Anyone interested in open space, conservation, or history agree, and any of our local officials who move this Arbor Haven proposal obviously have no interest in these important tenants, and it will be lost forever to the coming generations. I partnered with the land trusts Bob Gregg, and I spoke at that town meeting at which we voted to purchase and preserve the Country Club of Woodbridge parcel. I've written several letters to the Woodbridge Town's News over the years, and I have appeared before the Board of Selectmen in opposition to any development at the Country Club of Woodbridge. The parcel is on high land. It is an important home to many species. It is a lovely place to walk and contemplate in an area of town that does not have other parks. There are so many reasons to preserve this property, including conservation of resources, open space, and recognition of local, even national history. This is my latest letter to the Woodbridge Town News. The title being of that letter being Country Club of Woodbridge. What are our selectmen doing once again? In the Woodbridge Town News edition of November 16, 2018, appeared a letter by me titled Country Club of Woodbridge, What Are Our Selectmen Doing? Most all of what I wrote about at that time is still true today, with the misguided potential supported by the first selectman, the town attorney, and other selectmen to develop the priceless open space at the Country Club of Woodbridge. I've also written about this being a recurring nightmare. At the time, in the Woodbridge News and Events for November 2018, under November Planning and Updates, First Selectman Beth Heller wrote that the former Country Club property, she advised then that the selectmen had received a new proposal for the former Country Club of Woodbridge CCW from the developer of Fieldstone Village of Orange. Now it is a new unsolicited proposal from new developers interested in building approximately 145 homes on the property being touted by our first selectman. If this were to go through, it will create enormous challenges for our schools and town services in the years to come. What follows is exactly what I wrote 3 years ago. Simply stated, we need leadership from our town leaders. It appears the selectmen are awaiting anyone to send a proposal into them as to what to do with the former CCW property. This is not leadership, this is management by incoming letter. I'm on record in a previous letter to the editor, apparently ignored by our selectmen, for the preservation of the open space of this very historically significant crown jewel property. Any zoning change for this property will have enormous follow-on consequences for other properties in town and bring in housing much more clustered than our present 1.5 acre zoning that our town leaders have had the vision to include in our residential zoning regulations for many years. It is due to this that Woodbridge, although significantly developed, has retained its unique character. I informed townspeople about the history of the property deeds for the former CCW and the history of this property. One-time owners included Captain John Beecher and patriot and statesman Roger Sherman. The Roger Sherman connection to the CCW properties that he owned that property is Clover Hill Farm during the time he served as mayor of New Haven. If you do not know who Roger Sherman was, or if you are not aware of the historical significance, I suggest you do your own assessment. It is easy to start with, and there's a link to Clover Hill Farm, the former John Beecher, Roger Sherman, James Hill House property, town history. USA founding father Roger Sherman lived from 1721 to 1793 and is the only person to have signed all papers of independence of the United States, the Continental Association, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution. He was an influential member of the Constitutional Convention and a true statesman. In 1784, he was the first mayor of New Haven. Former CCW property owner prior to Roger Sherman was Captain John Beecher, and his family's presence on this property prior to the incorporation of the town of Woodbridge takes us back as far as the founding of New Haven and the original Beecher family in America. Think Beecher Road. If you don't know of Captain John Beecher, he was an ancestor of Lyman Beecher and his daughter Harriet Beecher Stowe and her siblings. The former CCW property was also owned at one time by James Hill House. There's so much more about these families in books and references on Woodbridge history. We have a very unique opportunity to save this property as was envisioned when the town purchased it, and decisions made now will have forever consequences. Please recognize the history of this property. I argue it is the most historically significant location in our town. I continue to strongly recommend maintaining the open space of the former golf course when developed. It will be gone for the public good. When developed, it will be gone for the public good and historical purposes forever. An RFP process should be constructed that invites proposals for 1, renovation, replacement of the Country Club catering banquet facility for operation as a for-profit property tax-paying venture. Renovation, number 2, renovation, replacement of the pool for townspeople. Summer use, there is no other outdoor town-owned pool. Number 3, create an open space conservation easement or farmland preservation grant to guarantee operation of the former golf course as a farm. We need more local farms, or just provide for public access and outdoor enjoyment. And 4, alternately consider working with our legislators to create a state park for this parcel to teach our children about history. As we know, town leaders have had issues managing the golf course facility under contract to an operating firm. Town leaders proved they were unable to manage the golf course either by itself or under contract to a provider. We must preserve this critical parcel of open space. It is one of the most important opportunities we have at this time to leave a legacy to generations of townspeople to come.
Tim, before you start the next letter, the bandwidth issue doesn't seem to be happening anymore. Is there a reason why everyone's cameras are off?
They're off so that it increases the bandwidth. We thought that would help.
Is that still necessary?
Well, we'll see. Perhaps I probably may not have my head to the letters at that point, and we'll realize when we're having problems. So we'll leave it up to people to turn their cameras on or not. There is one more public comment, which I'll read, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. The last comment is from Amy Morella. I offer the following public comment for the Conservation Commission's meeting. Please share it with all of the Conservation Commission members. I have copied Mrs. Shaw on this email to make sure there are no problems with transmission. To the members of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission, I applaud your recent vote to reject Arbor Haven's proposed plan to develop residential housing on the former Country Club of Woodbridge. Your action is consistent with the Conservation Commission's past leadership and with common sense. Some 20 years ago, the Conservation Commission led the town's push to acquire parcels of undeveloped land for permanent protection as open space. The Conservation Commission explained, and it was generally accepted, that it was less expensive for the town in the long run to purchase and protect open space than to provide government services for residential development. Under Kathy Gartland's leadership as chairman of the Conservation Commission, the town pursued and achieved the permanent protection of many acres. The records of the Conservation Commission will cite the studies on which the Commission relied in arguing that open space is preferable to housing as a matter of fiscal policy, let alone as a matter of aesthetics, respect for the natural environment, and opportunity for recreational enjoyment. More recent studies affirm the Conservation Commission's position. It would be wholly inconsistent with the Conservation Commission's past history, legal authority, and common sense to support residential housing on the CCW in general and the Arbor Haven proposal specifically. I am so glad that your current commission membership is remaining true to the commission's purpose and laudatory history. And that is the last of the comments. On behalf of the Commission, the Conservation Commission, I thank all the members of the public who took time to write public comment to us and submit them for tonight's meeting.
Do you want to see if anybody else is here to make a public comment before moving on? Okay. Can people make public comments on this?
Well, I don't know that, given that this is a virtual meeting, only I think the panelists are able to speak. We don't have support to promote someone, if you will, to be able to.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Barbara said that her camera completely froze and she's going to come over here and join me here so that she can participate in the meeting since her situation is not working.
Okay.
Technically for her.
Okay, we will move on with the agenda. The next item having been added and inserted in the agenda is the discussion of the Arbor Haven memo and the process by which it was undertaken. And so the floor is open on that.
I'd like to start by reading the
Tim,
memo.
before we get started, are we setting a group time limit for this discussion?
proposal? Anyone?
Paul,
As we
you made the
discussed-
motion.
Yeah,
Did you have-
as we discussed it, in our last meeting of Conservation Commission, I think this is probably the most important issue that the Conservation Commission is going to address for a very long time. So I'm not looking to drag this out, but I would like to spend whatever time it takes to come to resolution on it.
Well, how about in 20 minutes? If it takes longer than that, we'll revisit it, but hopefully it will be less time than that. And if it isn't, we can
Okay.
still extend it if it's important.
I'm okay with that. When is Barbara going to be joining? Is she, what's her ETA?
She's just driving over here now, so I'm not sure, but next 5 minutes or so.
Okay, all right. So I think it would be helpful for people who are watching this from home that haven't seen the memo or weren't able to watch our last meeting, that I just quickly read through the memo so they have the benefit of understanding what we wrote. Everybody that attended the meeting was provided a copy of it, and I'll just quickly read through the memo. It's titled Memorandum. It's dated November 18th, 2021. It's to the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen from the Conservation Commission, and the subject is Arbor Haven proposal. Title background. The Conservation Commission met on September 30th, 2021, October 21st, 2021, and November 18th, 2021, and devoted much of these meetings to the analysis, review, and discussion of the Arbor Haven development proposal for the Woodbridge Country Club property. On October 21st, 2021, the Arbor Haven presented their proposal to the Conservation Commission and answered questions. On November 18th, 2021, the Conservation Commission received in-person public comment to inform our decision on this important topic. At the Conservation Commission's November 18th, 2021 meeting, the Commission voted to issue this letter to the Board of Selectmen. Titled findings. Number one, the Conservation Commission charter is to protect the town's natural resources, and developing the largest piece of undeveloped property in town for high-density housing is contrary to our charter. Number two, the town purchased the property in 2009 to protect it from development. So to even consider selling the property to a developer to build condos and houses is contrary to the residents' wishes and the town's strategy in purchasing the property. Number three, the property has wetlands, endangered species, and extensive other wildlife that should be protected. Number four, the property is historically significant as it was Roger Sherman's family farm. Roger Sherman was an early American statesman and lawyer, as well as a founding father of the United States. He is the only person to have signed all four great state papers of the United States: the Continental Association, the Declaration of Independence, the Article of Confederation, and the Constitution. The property has remained pristine and undeveloped for nearly 250 years. Number five, the master plan for the Greenway in Woodbridge is that it will surround the town. The country club property is a missing link in our Greenway system, and that is critical in linking other established contiguous Greenway spaces in Woodbridge, Orange, and New Haven, and should be protected. Number six, to call Arbor Haven's proposal ill-conceived is generous. Arbor Haven has changed their estimates of home values, tax revenue, and town costs seemingly to solve for an answer and portray the proposal as financially attractive to the town. A, the estimated tax revenue is grossly overstated. For instance, the developer has estimated that a two-bedroom age-restricted attached home would sell for $625,000. The commission felt this was unrealistic and the tax revenue would be much less than projected. B, the estimated cost to the town is grossly underestimated. Arbor Haven estimated the number of students using a national average, even though we know the Woodbridge home buyer is not comparable. Home buyers in Woodbridge are predominantly families with school-age children. Assuming an honest estimate of the number of school-age children and using similar to the metrics used for previous development proposals, we estimate that the impact to be an additional 206 school-age children versus the developer's estimate of 72. The cost per child is also underestimated. Woodbridge is allocated the cost of Amity based on the number of students enrolled at Amity, and this year the cost is $19,732 per child. The estimated additional school costs alone are over $4 million. Beecher Road School is currently at its enrollment capacity, so a large influx of students would likely necessitate a large building project costing tens of millions of dollars. The developer's proposal is vague on what would be built and incomplete. The proposal shows clip art from the internet as models that would be built and presents proposed dirt roads in the development as streets and calls them Roman roads. The homeowners association could abandon the roads and they would become the responsibility of the town to pave and maintain in the future, as has happened on Round Hill Road. The public walking paths proposed on private property and in backyards in very close proximity to private homes were viewed as a likely source of future disputes between the proposed developments, homeowners, and town residents, and unworkable. The Arbor Haven proposal is even more financially detrimental to the town, and its impact on the environment is even worse than the first four proposals that were rejected by residents. During public comment, the Conservation Commission was presented two authoritative studies assessing the overall negative financial impact to communities of converting open space to residential development. We've attached the studies for the Board of Selectmen's reference. We also heard public comment from noted local experts in environmental studies and a doctor in veterinary medicine regarding the vital role large undeveloped contiguous parcels play in providing a habitat for endangered wildlife in our area. He further stated that these endangered species cannot survive in developments like the one proposed. Titled Conclusion. The expenses associated with Arbor Haven's proposal far exceed tax revenue and sacrifice the largest open space in town. And once it's gone forever. The proposal only financially benefits the developer and not town residents. Protection of the property from development is important to maintain the unique and long-standing character of Woodbridge. The Conservation Commission votes to reject the Arbor Haven proposal and strongly recommends the Board of Selectmen also reject the proposal. The Conservation Commission respectfully requests that the Board of Selectmen be more selective in what they send to boards and commissions in the future. Enclosures, there are two reports attached as enclosures. One was a report from Thomas DiNapoli, who's the State Controller of New York, regarding the economic benefits of open space. And also referenced is a Heisted study from the Heisted Foundation entitled "The Economic Case for Conservation." So that's the memo that was prepared by the three-person working group and was reviewed by the other members of the Conservation Commission. And as you will recall, it was voted on in our meeting back on November 18th to prepare this memo and submit it to the Board of Selectmen.
Say, Paul, just one point of, that doesn't sound like it's accurate to me in your very last statement. What was voted on was not to create a memo. And the motion, if you'd like, I can restate the motion that was voted on by the board at the meeting of November 18th, if you'd like.
That's fine if you'd like to do that. That's fine, but
Well, I
It wasn't
just
what-
want to clarify that the motion passed was not to write a memo.
well,
Is there-
what we agreed to do was to submit a memo to the Board of Selectmen, and it was not submitted to the Board of Selectmen, which was the cause of the controversy to start with. Had the
Well,
memo been provided to the Board of Selectmen, there would not have been any controversy because everybody would have had it.
Sorry, I have a quick
Sure, I
question.
understand that statement, but let me read the motion.
I just have a quick question.
Sure, Diana.
Point want to make just clarification for me. Thank you. And thank you, Paul, for reading that. So right now, are we trying to clarify that the vote that was taken on the November meeting was the rejection of the commission, or the rejection of the proposal by Arbor Haven, or are we stating that the vote that was taken was to create a memo? Paul, could you just clarify, just so that so I feel like we're all on the same page, because I feel like we're saying two different things, and just for my own clarification, that'd be great.
So I think the exact wording was that we voted to reject the Arbor Haven proposal. We recommended the Board of Selectmen also reject the Arbor Haven proposal, and that we forward a document to the Board of Selectmen outlining our reasons for why we rejected the Arbor Haven proposal.
So was the
And-
forwarding a document part of the vote?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And so, Tim, you're saying that you
Uh,
disagree with that?
Well, let me read the motion.
Thanks.
I took this motion from the recorded video of the meeting on November 18th. At the 60-minute mark and forward, at that meeting, I asked for a reading of the motion to be voted on. Paul stated the motion, in quotes, as I've written down for myself, that the Conservation Commission reject the proposal from Arbor Haven, and that we further recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they reject the proposal from Arbor Haven, and that we draft a document that documents the specific reasons we discussed tonight for rejecting the proposal.
Sorry, that sounds very similar to what Paul said.
Yeah.
And I apologize that I wasn't there. Is it just that the question was create versus draft the letter?
Well, no,
Is that a
no,
difference?
it never, and this is, I think, the discussion and the point. It's a fine point. There's no question about what the commission passed in terms of the rejecting the proposal or recommending to the Board of Selectmen to reject the proposal. There are discussions that have been had and issues I have with the concept that the 3-person working group would draft a memo following, the wording of the motion is specific. It's to draft a document that documents the specific reasons we discussed tonight for rejecting the proposal. So it's a list of reasons. It is, to comment further on that, that following the meeting, I talked to our FOI liaison at Town Hall, and I wrote an email, a very specific email to the 3-person work group, and copied the rest of the commission members that list of reasons that was to be put together, assembled, is the word I used in the email, needed to come back to the commission for the commission's review. There was nothing done, nor could I don't think we could ever authorize a 3-person working group to draft a memo that was going to be sent directly off to the Board of Selectmen. So the issue number one is, does work of the 3-person working group or a subcommittee, even if it's a subcommittee, need to come back to the commission, and it absolutely does. The commission
Can I
needs to-
interject? I'd like to interject, because there were only 4 people who voted on it. And that was a done deal. We voted and we agreed on it. It was your idea that we give an explanation later on. That wasn't what we initially had decided. And when you said it needed to come back, some of us, including myself, said there doesn't seem like there's any reason for it to come back. It is a done deal. But
Okay.
besides that, wait, just keep listening for just a sec. So the 3 of them figured it out and wrote it exactly per what the discussion had been. And then they checked it with me. So all the people who voted for it all were in agreement that that reflected exactly what the vote has intended to say. So given that, I think, and still strongly think, and I'd like to have, I'm not sure how to discern this, but I think because of that, it's really, to me, it's clear that that's enough. I mean, when, we haven't taken many votes as a group, but when we voted you as vice president, you didn't then, and we wanted to talk, it's when it's the vote's done, it goes to you didn't hesitate to bring that to the Board of Selectmen and said, I've been voted to be chairman. You went right to them. When this was voted on, there'd be no reason for it not to go right to the Board of Selectmen and be public knowledge, because it was in a public meeting that we all agreed on it. And any of the points that we called delineated were exactly what we'd spent talking about.
Again,
And I have further points to discuss on this, but that I think is where I think that's an important distinction, where David Lobar got thrown under the bus because of that technicality that I don't think any of us who voted on that agreed that that was a necessary step, because it was all exactly what was in the meeting and documented and videotaped previously.
again, what was voted on was an action by the commission, a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and to draft a document with the reasons. The list of reasons, and the work of that 3-person work group needs to come back to the full commission for review. Therefore, that could not yet be sent off to the Board of Selectmen until those came back and were approved. The fact that that meeting and the commissioners who were there approved the motion, it is approved, and it stands, and it will stand. And that is the recommendation and the motion that I will quote and send to the Board of Selectmen. But the list of reasons needs to be finished to be reviewed by this commission group, who's ever here tonight. And once it's done, then I will dutifully and faithfully send off the recommendation of the commission.
So
Just 2 things to jump in real quick, because I know it's sort of like splitting hairs, and it seems like we're all sort of going down the same path. We're just, pun intended, I guess, as we're talking about the paths at the country club. But, we're also going down the same path, and we're just sort of like at different places on it. So the vote that took place by the commission to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, that information should be public knowledge in the minutes, that then, our liaison brings that to the attention of the Board of Selectmen. Can also say that there is, they are drafting a memo. If the term draft was in the motion that was made, then, I believe in that can be open, for debate, but I believe it is implied that a draft would then be something that needs to be approved by the commission. So seeing that Paul just read the draft to everybody and the commission members are here,
Yeah.
this discussion could be the time that somebody makes a motion to say, you know, all those in favor of approving that draft to send on to the Board of Selectmen, and that would follow the proper. And I don't know, Tim, if that was just that it was just that little piece that the draft needed to come back to the commission to be reviewed and discussed before.
Well, yeah, there's also a problem in that the three-person work group went beyond what they were asked to do. They were not asked to draft a memo. The conveyance of the
Well,
decisions.
I don't think it's inappropriate that you frame a list, you know, of items. And I mean, you know, if it's an issue of being an overachiever, then gosh darn it, this commission is full of overachievers, and it's good that the list of all those things has context. But if you know there's like questions about the tone or about the content that's in there, then you know
And
bring that up. But you know, if that's the issue, then I think, you know, unless we want to can go around and around about, you know, this was made, but I meant this, and this is what we did, and whatever, you know, we could talk about it for 16 hours straight, and then Kate's going to cut us off at 20 minutes. So we don't have that time. So instead of sort of
Yep.
doing that, maybe it makes sense to say, all right,
You said,
you know, let's address the draft since we have it,
No.
since Paul read it.
well,
And
and
I would like to
reviewing the
propose-
list of reasons it was on the agenda for this evening. That's what we were going to do.
perfect.
And
Okay.
I would like to propose a motion at this moment. I would like to move that the Conservation Commission approve and adopt the Arbor Haven rejection memo as written by the working group, and that the Conservation Commission immediately provide the approved and adopted Arbor Haven rejection memo to the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second that.
Diana, did you get down that motion?
Yeah.
One-handed?
Would you like me to repeat it?
No. I think I've got the gist. Thank you. Sharon seconded that. Okay, so then we move to discussion. Is that right?
Discussion.
Okay.
I think it's important that the memo that we provide the Board of Selectmen is plain spoken and unambiguous. I think the memo that that the working group produced is accurate. It's in line with what we discussed. Everything we did was with the mind of being completely transparent. We watched the meetings, the YouTube copies of the meetings twice. We circulated a draft among the working group. Everybody had individual comments and revisions to make to it. Then we finalized it and we sent it on to the chairman. I think it's plain spoken and it's unambiguous. And I completely support sending it on to the Board of Selectmen. And frankly, I think we should have done this. We shouldn't be at this point where we have to have this vote again, but I think it was something that should have already been done, but it wasn't. And I think at this point, it's important for us to approve it, adopt it, approve it, and move on to other business that the Conservation Commission could be focusing on that would really add value to the town. So I support this proposal, the memo going to the Board of Selectmen so we can put this behind us.
I just have one question about the memo and the items listed in there that maybe somebody can help me with. Are they listed in the order in which they were discussed during the meeting?
I would say roughly they are. I'm not sure exactly if they're in the exact order, but
Just
we
curious.
circulated among the commission members, and so when we had discussed it in the meeting, it was more of a conversation and dialogue. So somebody would raise a point, and then another member would raise another point. So there was some discussion back and forth. So I'm not sure if the exact order is exactly how we had it, but I think the spirit is there.
Thank you.
Other comments? Other discussion?
I have a question. In the future, on a procedural level, should maybe that have been two different motions? Because there was a vote attached to that. And that's where I have a little concern. And I can understand that if we're drafting something without a vote, yes, perhaps it could have gone back. But with a vote, should that have possibly then had two motions that we move to reject the Harbor Haven proposal, and then the second one, and then we can attach a memorandum as to why we're rejecting it? Because my concern is that there was a vote attached to that. And somehow it seemed to be a little curtailed or stymied a little bit. So in the
And-
future,
and-
just moving forward. Thank you.
And to tag on to what Valerie said, I felt like, I think all of us are aware, Tim, that you sent a message to the chairman and asked Beth to read it. And it stated that you didn't know how the letter got to David Lobar. And I think all of us know that the memo was circulated, that what Paul was working on was circulated to all of us. And also that it was very denigrating to David Lobar and the entire Conservation Commission. And the part that was most tricky for me to get behind is that in the memo you wrote to the first selectman, there wasn't an indication of how the vote had gone. You just said the Arbor Haven has been discussed. I don't remember exactly your words, but if you'd said the Arbor Haven proposal has been voted on, it's been rejected, 4 rejections, 1 abstention. So basically it carried unanimously. And I have a little difficulty with how it got connected, how it got introduced to the selectmen meeting, then I would be like, okay, maybe there's some difficulty with our understanding. But the fact that you didn't indicate the vote in your kind of very intense denigration of the commission was a little bit concerning to me. And I ask that in the future, if we have disagreements that and with conduct within our commission members, that we bring it before each other before we bring it to the Board of Selectmen, and thus have it read to every single person in the town. Because I think we are better than that, and we can have that. You know, we want to be a well-functioning commission, and that doesn't reflect that. Kate, you want to talk?
Yes, I just want to clarify that I did not receive a copy of it until Paul sent me a copy earlier this week, and I'm not sure that Diane, who I believe also missed the last meeting.
No, I guess I misspoke. I meant the working people, the people who were at the quorum that was there, that was doing business.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to
with-
make sure that it's
Yeah.
what we're saying is accurate, so that.
No, I agree with that. I
Don't
misspoke. I
throw-
think the people who were involved in the quorum that made the vote were
Yeah.
all part of the discussion.
The issue of concern,
Just to clarify, Kate, the reason why the memo wasn't sent to you early on, after I sent it to Tim to forward to the Board of Selectmen, and you had questioned about the memo. I didn't send it to you because Tim said he couldn't send it to you, and then in preparation to this meeting, I thought it would be important for all the members in terms of transparency to really have an opportunity to review the memo before we sat down to discuss it again.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Paul. I sent my email asking for a copy of it after it had already been read into the record in a special Board of Selectmen meeting. So presumably at that point, it had already been given to, at the minimum, David Lober. And so that's the point where, as a commission member here with you, I would have liked to have received it before it went off to the group.
Okay. Point taken. We had provided
the
it to
issue here
everybody that attended the meeting.
is an FOI issue. Looks like we're breaking up again. Let me wait. Paul's
We have a
breaking up.
motion on the floor.
We do have a motion to be for a vote on the floor. Is that important to do it?
No, we're still
This
in,
is
it's
not
still in,
part
we're still in discussion. And,
Okay.
sorry, just quickly, Val had a quick question just about, when we vote on something and then make a decision about a memo. Those are two different items that should be broken apart and addressed separately, in my opinion. Because the memo is, the vote is something, actionable that we need to communicate upward, and that shouldn't be delayed. And then, drafting something and writing it should, to Kate's point, if a subcommittee is drafting something on behalf of the commission, we all should then, appreciate the time and effort it takes to do that. Because I don't have time for that now. But then also just have, the opportunity to read it in case, we have a couple.
Okay, well, that.
I
that's
agree
really
with,
good
I
to
agree
know.
with that.
I agree with that too. In addition, I think we're supposed to put the draft minutes, submit them within like a very limited amount of time. And I don't think we've done that for the November meeting. And I think a really important point is that any notes taken for a meeting at the commission are directly sent
Okay.
to the commission members and brought
Start to
to the
come back.
commission for any alterations needed. And they can't be altered by the chairman or any other specific person until we're all together in a meeting to make those changes. And I think that's been happening and it's a concern. And
Sorry,
I think it's a reason we need a paid secretary to take us out of that loop. And I want to.
Sharon, we have to hold that. That is a separate topic. We do have
Okay.
a vote, an open vote on the floor, a motion on the floor, and we lost our chairman for about 2 minutes in there. It looks like he's back now. So I apologize. You'll probably have to reiterate that.
Well, I'll reiterate it when it's a more appropriate time to.
Right after the vote.
After the vote.
So if Tim is back, maybe he wants to call for any final words on the vote, final discussion. Maybe he has something he wants to add.
Oh,
Wait for him. Wait for him.
should we shut off our cameras? Maybe that worked last time.
Sure.
Tim, can you hear us? That didn't seem to work.
Well, we'll just give him a few minutes to come back.
Yes, when I went permanently, so hopefully he hasn't.
Well, it was a really good magic trick watching you go from your own camera and then being seated next to
And here on
Sharon.
somebody else's, right?
It's a great parlor trick.
Barbara,
Yes, yes, yes.
did you walk, Barbara, or did you take your
I
car?
walked, yes. No, actually I ran.
I'm so impressed.
I wish I'd slid downhill, actually, but no such snow.
Not on a 65-degree day in December.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Maybe Tim should call in.
Run to somebody else's house.
Should someone try to call him? Maybe
Oh, no, he's not there yet.
I'm gonna call him. Didn't work.
There he is. He's back.
He's back.
Tim, can you hear us?
Looks like he's logging on to camera number 2.
Yeah, it looks like when it jumped back on, it muted again. Is that only my connection that's having a
We
problem?
can hear you now.
Okay, but over the past 5 minutes or however long it was anybody else having a problem? or
No.
I think it was just
is that
you.
just me? Okay, I've moved rooms here. I'm just trying to get myself settled.
We paused the conversation, so when you're settled, we were just gonna turn it back over to you for further discussion.
Yeah, okay. And if you just give me a minute to all arranged here. I think my comment was going to be on the aspect of the work group, and the fact that the product of the work group, I wanted to talk about it in terms of FOI. The and this came up at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And there was a question raised by one of the selectmen about whether the fact that a group worked together to put together a memo, quote unquote, because that was their understanding, was an FOI concern.
Diane, is that a different agenda item?
So I think we're losing Tim again. That's right, we've gained Willa. And it's not necessarily unless he's making a request for something. Stop. Unless he's making a request for something, a change or a policy or something or procedure for the commission. Then it could just be part of his discussion. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess
back.
too soon to call. Tim, are you there?
I believe he's gone again.
Back, Paul.
Hi, Tim. Are you there?
Can see you now, Tim. Can you try speaking so we can hear you?
Tim, it might be worth you trying to turn off your camera.
Diane? I'm back. I was on the move again.
No more moving. You must stay still.
No, I think when I move, it seems to work. Is
Wherever you move to now works less well.
Am I back?
Yes. And return your camera off, though, Tim.
No, he's not really back.
Then maybe you want to try just dialing in on your phone if you can't get your computer to work.
Tim, maybe you turn your camera off.
I wasn't the only one.
Maybe we can ask David Lobar to mention to the Board of Selectmen that we start using Zoom instead.
Second that.
I find WebEx is the worst of all of them.
Are we limited on making any comments until he gets back?
Sharon, I think you're on mute, maybe.
I guess he could watch the video and then he would be part of it in that way.
Right.
Or he could call in, right? Diana, can we communicate with him in any way that he can call? I tried to text, I tried to call him and he didn't answer because he's really
Oh.
busy.
No, I was just gonna say, I think I think the comments were done by the commissioners and we were just waiting for Tim to say his comment or determine if it was a comment or something that needed to be moved to a separate item.
I just While we're waiting for Tim, I just want to clarify that it was only 3 people who were part of the committee and I was just sent a mento and just communicated with one person and I was not part of it. So he already got the FOI
Yeah.
permission that 3 people could work together. And I wasn't working with the group. I was just, I think Paul just wanted to include me in the loop to make sure I didn't disagree with anything. So I don't know. the
Sharon,
FOI.
can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can people hear me now?
for just an
Yes.
instant.
Sharon, I wanted, that's a perfect segue to let me continue with the concern. I have I still see people popping out on my screen. Maybe Diana just put the video off. I have a document that I pulled from the Connecticut General Assembly site. It's from an attorney consulting to them to the General Assembly and doing research on the topic of meetings under the Freedom of Information Act. Um, and I'll read the section called Definition of a Meeting under FOI. FOI A generally, and the A is the act, generally provides that any hearing or other proceeding of a public agency is a meeting, as is any gathering of a quorum of a multi-member public agency to discuss an act or act on any matter over which it has jurisdiction, control, or advisory power. This includes individual encounters among the people who make up a quorum, such as a series of telephone calls or a series of personal meetings. So, and the concern that was raised at the Board of Selectmen meeting and my concern and the reason for asking the 3-person, limiting it to 3 people, was to avoid that quorum number even by phone or email. So, and they're saying that it's a series of telephone calls or a series of personal meetings.
But Tim, wouldn't that also mean that the memo that you sent out to us was also a violation because you sent it to all of us and you acted on it singularly?
Which
That you were going to tell
Which
Beth Heller
memo?
and that we. The one that you sent
Right.
about Beth Heller. And that someone had transgressed what you perceive to be the time frame of the divulging information. Wouldn't that also be constituted as something that was business that was conducted?
No, because you were copied as informational. We weren't having
Well, just to
exchange.
clarify,
That
just to
was
clarify
exactly the
something,
same
Tim.
with-
Yeah, that's what we did with the working group. There were three members of
Exactly
the
with the
working
same
group.
thing, Tim.
And when the document was finished, we sent it to you and copied everybody else. So it was exactly what you just described, which is permitted. Unless what you told us what to do wasn't permitted, but that's what you instructed us to do,
what
that
the
we should
the
limit our
instruction-
discussion to,
The instruction was to assemble the list of reasons and then bring it back to the commission. That means to,
No,
But
it
no,
wasn't
Commission
that.
meeting.
None of
No.
us agreed to that
No.
at that meeting, Tim. That was only your assertion. That was not what we agreed to.
yeah, so that wasn't what you voted,
Well,
read what
there,
was that we voted on, and that wasn't the motion that we voted on. So I think we've spent enough time talking about this. We're just gonna go in circles. I'd like to, honestly, I think there's a lot of things this commission can do. I think the next thing we should talk about is process and communication going forward, so we don't have an issue like this where it becomes contentious. And I also think going forward that if there is an issue, that we talk among each other first, instead of sending a memo to the Board of Selectmen accusing people of breaking trust and being political. I don't think that was appropriate. Everything that the working group did was with complete transparency, and we were diligent in making sure that what we wrote was accurate and reflected the discussions in the meeting. At this point, I'd like to ask for a vote on the motion.
I
I'll
have one
second.
more comment before we vote on the motion. I want to let you know that I will be voting no on the motion, but that had I been at the previous meeting, I would have supported the vote no to the proposal. But I'm not going to vote on the motion for the memo because I had no part in drafting it.
Just to clarify,
Yes,
Kate, do you have any concerns with the memo?
I
Is
think
that-
that we went out of the scope of the Conservation Commission on at least a few parts of it. But I don't think that that's something that we should unpack tonight. I think
Yeah.
that
Sure.
the cow is out of the barn.
um,
Let's get Bessie back.
there-
So there's a vote on the floor.
right.
Is that
Well,
not
hang
true?
on, just
I still have comments to make, and it looks Diana has also. Diana?
so there is a vote on the floor. However, Kate or anybody could make a vote to make an amendment to the original motion, which is to submit it after, I don't know, commission members can submit their edits, or we can rescind the vote.
Wow.
Quite honestly, my thought on the memo is I don't have any issue with how it was written. I may have reordered some of the list just based on climate change priorities, but that was answered by Paul as to why it was in the order it was in. But other than that, I don't have any conflict with submitting that. It seems like it reflects what the discussion and the opinion of the members has been. But yeah, so I guess that's my only comment. So there is, even though there is a vote on the floor, there could be, another motion made for an amendment to that vote. If commission members felt like before a memo of this magnitude goes to the Board of Selectmen, and all memos moving forward should be, reviewed and approved by commission members before it's formally submitted. And I'm not saying that it was formally submitted, but it did somehow end up in the Board of Selectmen. So those are my comments. And I'm happy to go.
I feel that we should look at the list of reasons and address concerns with the list of reasons. I have outlined a few, others may have other concerns. And so I will do as Diana suggested. And
Wait. I don't, Diana, I'm not sure. We voted, the four of us, based on what we discussed. I don't think we can change that now. That was what we discussed.
Sorry, the vote, so from what I'm gathering, the vote that
No.
happened to approve or reject Arbor Haver, that's neither here nor there. That was a full rejection, and that should go. That
But can I do a straw vote of the people who were voted against it and what our perception was? Because I don't think any of us perceived that the content wasn't going to be what we had discussed and was going to be changed at a subsequent meeting. We were just appeasing Tim's interest in being more explanatory. We were not opening it up that we would change that we'd change it. It was a vote, and it was a vote of a quorum. So I'm not sure how
No,
we
no.
can then.
And I'm not suggesting that we need to have a vote. So the only person who can rescind the vote is Barbara, and she doesn't need to do it. And somebody can make a motion to amend the vote that we have the motion already on the table. You know, or the third option is that we vote on it. And so even if somebody makes a motion to amend the motion already on the floor, that doesn't need to necessarily pass or not pass. So I'm sorry, it's so like a hole within a hole.
One thing that people should recall is when Tim read the motion, was that we were voting to include the reasons we had discussed that evening. So, I mean, what we had discussed is exactly what was in the memo, and the working group watched the video twice to make sure we got everything right. And what was included is what we discussed and what we voted to include.
Okay.
so
So
I will,
I think you just need to let the vote happen to see where people fall.
well, I'm now going to move as an amendment. And Diane, can you read that motion as best you can so I can properly phrase this amendment?
So there's a motion on the table to approve and adopt the memo as written regarding the Arbor Haven memo and decision and submit to the Board of Ed, and that was seconded. And so now we're in the discussion. But if you are making another motion to amend the original motion, you need to state what that amendment is.
I guess I would amend it after we have discussed the concerns with the wording of the list of reasons contained therein.
Okay, so let's peel this onion apart real quick. So you're making a motion to amend the original motion to add review and approve and adopt.
Well, I think the motion basically says send the memo to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
Correct.
so if you're not in favor of the motion, then you can't make a motion to amend it like as if to say we don't vote to approve and submit, because that's voting in opposition to it. So in which case, then the vote would happen and you would just vote not in favor of that. And then you could make a second motion.
Just bear with me, read that motion again.
Sure.
The original motion.
Sure. So the motion was made to approve and adopt the memo as written regarding the Arbor Haven rejection and submit to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Yeah,
So if
that,
there's something you want to do to amend it,
yeah. Right. Okay, yeah, that, as I had outlined it, would not be a valid amendment. Um, correct. Um, okay. Then I will comment that the that I had put forth to the commission some concerns I had with the list of reasons, which is incorporated in the memo. Um, and of all of those, I wouldn't have put them down there if they weren't of concern. There is one though that I think is of various concerning nature, and that is where we talk about it. And I'm trying to find it, if you bear with me. Um, uh, that, it, it's where we said, I think there were words to the effect of assuming a an honest estimate. Uh, yeah, here it is. Assuming an honest estimate of the number of school children. That word choice impugns the integrity of Arbor Haven. That's a legal type of issue. And
I don't agree with that, Tim. They were they weren't straightforward with us in their presentation. They described dirt roads as Roman roads. They originally said there were going to be 2 students per household, and then when they were questioned by using um, the wrong cost per student per household, they increased the cost per student, but they reduced the number of students by 50%. So you know what? It is what it is. It's plain spoken. They were a bunch of slicksters, and they were trying to they were trying to put something over the town, and that's the way the commission felt. You may not agree with it, but I think the memo has to be plain spoken so people understand what our concerns are and what our decision is. And frankly, to change numbers to make things look favorable when in fact it is not true is dishonest. And so it wasn't an honest estimate because they didn't put forward an honest estimate.
yeah,
And further, of other things that had come up in the proposal that the Conservation Commission and other commissions in question on, their answers were, it just showed a complete disrespect for the commissions in the town of Woodbridge to think that the people that make up these commissions are really that stupid that they can't listen to the words they're saying and evaluate them. And I don't think their estimate was honest at all. And that's the plain English to it.
well, um, you- people can choose different sets of numbers to use, and we can certainly disagree on the numbers. Um, but to say an organization, this group is imply that they may not be honest, I think is putting a little bit of jeopardy to the town. So
I don't agree with that at all. I think it's just it's being plain spoken. It's being straightforward. And I think the numbers that we talked about in the commission meeting were honest and reasonable estimates. And I think what Arbor Haven put forward was something to essentially cook the numbers in their favor to show that the proposal was beneficial to the town when, we've had public comment, we've had other members of the commission speak to it. It's just their numbers are simply made up. The tax numbers are made up. If you think a 2-bedroom attached home is going to sell for $625,000, and if you think it costs the town $11,000 to educate a student, if you think there's only 1 student per household and that age-restricted homes have no impact on the school system, then I guess it's a difference of opinion. But in my opinion, and I think in the other commission members' opinions. Those are not honest estimates. So I don't know what word you would suggest using, but I think honest is a very straightforward word, and I don't think their estimates were honest.
So just to jump in, accurate could have been another word, but that's neither here nor there. The this is just a point. So when drafting memos for the commission, this is why these should come back to everybody, because if Sharon or Barbara or Val disagrees with a couple of words in there, we want the opportunity to discuss. I'm not saying we need to go further down discussing other words, but it seemed like Tim, has an issue with using the word honest versus maybe there was another option that we could have used. I guess the real question about using the word honest was, did that really reflect what the conversation was of the commission when you were voting that evening? And I imagine the committee who drafted the memo, used their best judgment and their best ability to capture the context of the discussion. So, I think as long as it wasn't, playing into something else and it was to the best, nature of what the discussion was, I think, what you've described, Paul, seems reasonable.
Yeah.
They were certainly withholding more
Yeah.
accurate information than what.
I don't think we would lose much by saying realistic, accurate, whatever.
Yeah. So I think, moving forward to Val's question earlier, the vote on something like that should happen separately, and then the direction for a subcommittee to draft a memo with more context to adhere to that decision, should be a separate item as well, and then it'll save us this this conversation in the future.
Well,
Okay. I mean, with that being said, Tim, do you want to continue to entertain discussion on the motion, or do you want to,
No.
let the vote take place?
now, if there's no other comments on my concern, and there's no other comments overall, we'll call the motion. Okay, so the motion, please, just for the record, Diana, if you want to read the motion, its form, final form.
There's a motion on the table to approve and adopt the memo as written regarding the rejection of the Arbor Haven proposal by the Woodbridge Conservation Commission and submit to the Board of Selectmen as a recommendation.
And we will take a roll call vote. Paul,
Aye.
Sharon, whoops, Sharon, muted.
Aye. Sorry, aye.
Okay. All right. Barbara,
Aye.
Kate,
Abstain.
Val,
Aye.
and Tim is a no. And Diana, excuse me, Diana.
I am in favor of the memo.
All right, the motion's adopted. All right. I will pause and ask for a sense of the commission. We have a lot of topics to go through. It is already 9:30, the time by which I'd hope we could wrap up a reasonable, and maybe in some views unreasonable length of a commission meeting. And so we can plow on, of course, or we can perhaps recess the meeting and reconvene on a day that we would try to determine among everybody's schedules would work.
Tim, can I ask you a question? Can we go through the agenda items and identify which items we think are time sensitive or that would be have bearing on our next meetings, so that maybe we could talk about those, so we don't slow things up for things that could be addressed over time, that might be something that we would have impact on our January meeting.
Probably a
So
good
that-
suggestion, Paul. The items that have time sensitivity, in my view, would be the budget adoption. Certainly, that needs to be gotten into town hall. The item just above it, number 4 on your list, it relates to the budget. And perhaps can be done in just a few minutes, just so people know what the item is in the budget, a little more well developed than perhaps I can talk about it last time. And then the other item that I think it has a little bit of time sensitivity is number 6, the former Parati property, and that's just to be able to get word into the developer and their engineer that the commission concurring that we are interested for the open space, for them to put a designation of open space somewhere on that property. The rest of it, I think there's some perhaps time sensitivity with what David Lober may say, but David may have the comment on that. But it's good to know more currently than not what's going on at the Board of Selectmen.
I was thinking that the guest speaker would be good to, at least maybe if we could mention a couple potential guest speakers, so that we could line them up for January or February if we decided to take that path.
Yeah,
And we wouldn't have to get into detail. We could table the rest of the discussion, but just as long as we could line somebody up for the next couple meetings.
Well, I wouldn't
could
see
make
the
progress on
necessity. I mean, there's no time sensitivity in getting a guest speaker here.
Well, there is in
Sharon,
Barbara, I
you
think
again?
or Sharon, you're on mute
okay,
again.
I think, well, my proposal is, this is what I would propose, that we talk about the Parati land and give that 5 minutes, because I think that can be pretty short. I'd like 2 minutes to talk about the guest speaker and make a choice, and then the trail, and then the fiscal year, and then call it quits and put the rest for the next meeting.
If I may interrupt, I think number 7 has to be answered by the 17th, by tomorrow.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara, for reminding me. There is but that's a personal decision. That can be of each member.
Oh, okay. So
not a-
it's not as a group
Not a
we're
commission,
going, we
but
would
I
be
think
doing that?
it's worth, and we can, it's worth making a statement for 1 minute that's what that is. So, I mean,
Okay. Well, let's run into let's try to run through those quickly in the next half hour.
okay.
And be done by 10.
Okay, so, well then, I guess, Kate, do you want to? Can you just
Sure.
speak
We're-
2
we're
minutes on the trail challenge, and with the knowledge that my thought was anyway, at a next full meeting, regular scheduled meeting, we would have a full blown discussion of the trail challenge, but just in terms of the budget.
Okay, as succinctly as possible. January of last year, we put together a website that was a comprehensive resource of all of the trails in Woodbridge, with proper citation for each, if it's land trust property or park association property. And what we discussed under the previous chair, and with, I think, Sharon was the only other member at that point, was doing a trail challenge where town residents, if they accumulated a certain number of points by utilizing our outdoor open space resources, they could then bring them to the Conservation Commission at some point during the year, and we would award them a Woody Bridger badge. And so the budget implications of this are for, a ream of nice paper, and then these cute little badges that are like, it would be now the 2022 Woody Bridger badge, with the hope that it could be something we can continue on in subsequent years and perhaps utilize a local artist to help us to design the badge. That's it.
And what do you propose the cost being?
I think last year it was not very much. I mean, I priced out the cost of doing like 50 of the badges to start, and I think it was like to get 50 of them was like $400. And I was thinking like an enamel pin, something kind of cute that you could have. I think there's total flexibility there if anyone else has other ideas or,
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
that's, the evolution of that program is what we would discuss at a full, when we have more time to make this a full-blown topic on the agenda. There's money for this year, which runs through May. And then in the budget, I reviewed last meeting with all of you. We had added another $350 for the fiscal year starting in May through the next May. So with that, I think we'll transition and talk about the budget. I have sent the budget to everybody. I will make comments on the budget that the objectives that we reviewed last meeting are the same. I've just put them on the form that the town asked for the submission, added a general description of the
Tim, I'd like to make an addition to the budget.
Okay.
I think given some of the difficulty we've had and the stress, and I've mentioned this to Tony Genovese, and I think he's working on it, is adding a budget for someone to do notes officially. And I've estimated it to be $2,000 a year, and it is true that I think every, if not most other commissions have that secretary, and it was true for us up until about a year and a half ago. And I think us being a new commission, I've found that we've had some difficulties with getting the notes, the draft notes done in a timely fashion, and that there's been some altering of notes, and it isn't as clear a process as it has because we're all looking for direction, and in that way, the notes aren't reflective as much as they could be. And I strongly recommend that we add $2,000 to the budget for an official note taker.
Yeah. In your conversation with Tony, was he looking at that as
Yes.
part of the town budget in terms of what the town staff provides to the
I
commission?
actually spoke to Karen. I spoke to Karen and not to him because he was busy. And
Okay.
I'm not sure, but it would cover us. If the town is willing to do it, we can take it right out of the budget. I mean, we'll find that out because the budget will go through many processes. And if Tony goes, oh, no, we'll do that from another budget, we'll go, oh, great. We can take it right out.
Yeah, well, it would be an interesting question to know whether the monies that cover the support staff for the other commissions comes out of those commissions' budgets. Because I don't, and I can't say I did a comprehensive look, but in preparing our budget, I looked through a number of other budgets, and I didn't see any line items that would make me think that.
Right. I
2000
understand that. But the fact is, we don't have one. And if we had the budget, we could definitely have one. And otherwise, it's the whim of what's available and not available. And I think it's a reasonable request given that, when I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting, they have 4 staff. They were paying for 4 staff, or maybe they're part of their salaries, but it was part of their working time.
It's part of their
must
work.
have-
I think that's the difference.
Well, no,
It is
I don't-
pretty, the $2,000 is pretty standard for the cost of somebody to record the minutes for a meeting. For the 4 commissions I staff, that's roughly the budget for the person.
Yeah. And does that?
That comes out, so that's something that you put into your budget request for the new fiscal year. You know,
But
just
in the town, for as an example, I don't, maybe different in Woodbridge, but in the town you are, is that in individual commissions budgets? Or is that,
showing size. It's both ways, but the commission budgets sometimes fall under departments and then sometimes don't. So in like Parks and Open Space Commission, for example, they don't fall under a specific department, so they
Yep.
request that line item in their budget.
Yep.
But for, let's say, like planning and zoning, they fall under the planning and zoning department, and so that's then built out in that department budget. So it's both ways. I guess the question is, you know, are we a commission of a department? I don't think so. I think
no, we're not.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, in which case, you know, whether it's the Woody Badgers pins or somebody who can type faster than me, or whatever the, you know, paper and, you know, pencils that we need, whatever we need, we can put anything into the budget that we want and submit it over, and it will be,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
under review by the Board of Finance first.
And just the recognition should be there that the, you know, our, the request that came down, was for our budgets to remain flat. And for, and that we document, if we went over the being flat, that we, annotate what program, what items, I think it said programs, uh, should be on the hit list, if you will, be taken out if we had to remain flat. So I don't have it in front of me, but I know, I believe our budget, if I'm recalling, for last year was $800, I think.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah,
To tell you, but I had requested that Jason go to the Board of Finance meeting,
yeah.
and he was unable to attend it to increase our budget last year.
Okay.
So he missed the meeting and thus missed the opportunity to increase our budget as we had hoped. So, and prior to that, we had a secretary, and I don't know that if it was part of our budget or just part of some other budget, but this was a newly disappeared service within
Yeah.
the past year. So I
No,
think we could argue, Tim, I think we could argue that it is keeping it flat because it's returning us to what we had for,
yeah.
for years and years. I think we'd had a secretary.
Sharon, I would love to have someone take all the minutes and have it standard and be consistent.
Great.
But I just want to make everyone aware. I don't want to have any false expectations. You know, the finance people don't work like that. They say, you know, it's past
Well,
years
let me-
don't count. It's this immediate past year. What was your budget? Don't come in over that. So
So
you know,
noted.
in the $1,450 that we have in what I sent out, we're over that already, and I know that. And what I was my suggestion. We and my actually, I'll tell you, I was wrong in my recollection. Now I think the budget we have this past year is, for the current year, is $1,000. Because my suggestion was going to be that the boot brush program be the one that we make the sacrificial lamb if they needed to keep it flat. And that's 450, so that'd have been 1,000, and that'd be flat.
That word, Tim, excuse me, what was that? What was the boot brush? What?
Boot brush pilot, and this is something that we talked about briefly last year. It would be a pilot to at the entrance to some of the trails to be determined, and there's really only two.
A boot brush. I never heard that.
brush. Those are devices on which walkers, before they enter a trail
Right.
or pathway, can clean off their boots, and they can do the same when they leave the trail, and that prevents the spread of invasives. And what a particular concern that was raised to me was jumping worms, which are soil destroyers. Kate seems to know about that. and we talk more about, so we, somewhere in the material, I think it's spelled out briefly.
Well, maybe we can get donations for that. I mean, if it's only $200, I'd be willing, there may be some other
But you
options.
said
instead of
400.
Yeah.
400.
So I'm,
Again, I don't think there's
I'm
any issue
happy.
just putting.
Sorry, Diana, go ahead, please.
I was saying, again, of course, the town is going to say, keep it flat or reduce budget, which I think is another issue that needs to be addressed down the line. But
Yeah.
we're asking for less than $5,000 for an annual budget. I think you put it out there. If you don't ask, then you don't get it. But at least if you ask, you try, and maybe you get something. So I guess I support putting the boot brush and the woody badgers and the woody bridges. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bridges badgers, and not badgers. I don't support them. And then the secretary. I think those things are all valid if commission agrees.
I have no problem putting it in. I just want.
I just want to have
good
you
awareness of
contrast.
what the budget process is set up. A couple of you weren't on last time.
Tim,
So
one more thing. The last meeting that I listened to, the firemen are asking for $1 million for 900 and some odd thousand for a truck.
Yeah.
So I think our $3,000 is really going to be, I mean,
yeah,
in the
Sharon,
mix, right?
I understood. I mean, it's peanuts. It's piddling.
Right.
But and we're going to have to build up over time based upon having success and bringing good things to life, if you will, for the town in terms of open space. And, so, but I will, given the addition of the budget for and do they call it a secretary? I don't think it's
No,
called
that's an
that.
inappropriate word. It is
Yes, I would think so. So,
What is the right word?
what? Help me with
Recording assistant?
a
minute recorder or something like that.
yeah, a recorder of minutes. Okay.
I think the term is scribe.
A
Tim,
scribe.
Yeah.
Tim,
Yes. Barbara.
can I ask that you send out the budget again? I honestly don't recall having received this.
Did anybody
Budget.
else receive it? In the package I sent?
When I first joined the commission, you sent me a copy of it. But
No, it wasn't that.
I-
This was something, when I sent out the agenda.
Well, I have all those, I have it all here and I don't.
And if I missed it, then that's my error, and I'll own that one.
I
Because
didn't.
it should have been there. So,
Well, could you send that to us
No,
tomorrow?
I did get the one about the subdivision.
no, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
let me,
I got that also.
okay.
And the one about the replying on the 17th for the survey I got that.
Okay. I mean, it's perfectly possible that I just,
Sorry, the 21-22
yeah,
budget summary as adopted.
I missed it.
Wait,
So,
hold on. No, 11-17. I think it says the proposed.
that wasn't the
20
final. So,
Okay, well, we have 9 minutes left,
Yeah.
so.
So can I move on to, so are we going to agree? Do we need to vote on agreeing to put all those three things in the budget, or are we just all going to agree on that?
well, the budget has the other items in it. So if you, I don't want to phrase it as just those
Can
three
you
items.
share your screen and put it up for us? But
If-
while you're doing that, can I talk to people about a guest speaker so that I get this little bit of time?
Sorry, real quick. When does the budget need to be submitted by? What's the deadline? Should we just make a special motion instead of trying to squeeze all of this into the next 8 minutes? Make a special meeting?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I'll defer to the group on that.
When does the budget need to be submitted by?
Um,
think the end of next month.
I think I have a little time left.
Okay,
I don't recall exactly when it is.
but we will have another meeting before it needs to be submitted.
I do not know. I am sending. I am sending the
Does David know?
David.
I'm checking now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it needs to be submitted by January 4th. Says,
Oh, it just said January.
Ford.
She's a recorder. She said January 4th, so maybe that was her answer?
Yeah, so that's when the budget summary needs to be submitted. So then in which case it stinks, but and I made a recommendation that we have a special meeting. I think the 22nd or something. Or in between Christmas and New Year's.
No, I can't. I'll be away.
Okay, before Christmas Eve.
Oh, no, I'm away the whole week.
The week before Christmas?
Oh, the week before Christmas? No, I'm here next week. Next week. I'm busy most nights. Can I fill this space with my little bit of interest in getting guest speakers? Because I do think it might be a worthwhile thing to move on a little bit. I'm not sure it will be very controversial at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just emailed out the document. I think that will describe the budget.
So if I could be afforded 2 minutes, the idea that a few of us have had is that we're a new commission and there's some resources and people who know more about some of the conservation, some of the possible goals of conserving land in our town, and also the budget process of what resources we have and how do we even initiate any kind of acquisition of any land. And so maybe we could agree to have in the next 2 months have Tony Genovese come and speak to us that. And I spoke to him and he's more than willing to do it. And, keep it to a short thing. And I think he in particular will understand what he thinks we might need to know about the financial part of acquiring land in the town of Woodridge as a conservation commission. And the other person I thought might be good and not controversial person in any way is Chris Sullivan, just to talk about the role of wetlands, to talk about how any aspect of, she's been on land management and planning for a decade or so and knows it well and has been on her own on commissions in Bethany too. And, invite them for 15 minutes and Tim and they can create the agenda, or maybe Tim would like to have other people do it. And we kind of figure out, have a little subcommittee saying, oh yeah, run the guidelines of what might be worth talking about. Does that make sense?
I think the land trust would be good to add to that list too.
Yeah, I
since
think land
their
trust.
objectives are very similar to ours.
Yeah, I just thought if we're only getting to starting with two, I think land trust. I think maybe Park Association, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think we can do one every other meeting for a little while and see.
It's a great idea.
And see if they're useful.
Yeah. One Sharon and I had talked about this briefly, and I would like to have, and I have a particular person in mind, that I mentioned to Sharon, that to come in and just talk about the history of the commission or give a historical perspective on what the
And
commission.
I think that's a great. I think you mentioned Amy Morella, who I think is a very good resource.
Yeah.
And Jim Urbano. I mean, there's more, but I think there's like
There's a
5 or
bunch.
6 key people, and then we can branch out where we see that our gaps still
Where we
exist.
see, I'd like to sort of make this a continuing, not necessarily every time, but open to having people come in and chat with us for 15 minutes and
Yeah.
As we get past all this administrative stuff.
And it seems like we might want to put it at the beginning of the meeting so that person doesn't have to listen.
Oh,
to
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Okay,
Um,
so
agree.
are people okay if I further those discussions with the people mentioned and see if any of them are truly interested and if they want to commit, and then I'll check in with you, Tim, to see if it coordinates with the meeting?
Yes, that's.
Okay,
sounds
so
fine to
should we
me,
vote on that?
But I don't know that we need a vote. I think it's just, a consensus, and look, unless, if anyone has an objection, please speak up, because but otherwise,
Yeah. Does anyone have an objection?
okay,
It's
Okay.
an excellent idea.
okay. And
Okay, so I'll work on that.
Yep, thank you, Sharon. I sent out the budget document. Apologies if you can look at your email. There,
I got it.
and Barbara, thank you for bringing my attention that I missed that. I had a checklist and I don't know. So it starts with a general description. That's just a submittal form. And, most everybody looking at that now in one way or another. The numbers, the actual numbers are on the second page.
The 1450, that's the total number.
Right, and then we would add, as been suggested, a recorder. And,
For minutes, okay. So a fifth item to it for $2,000.
yeah,
Seems reasonable.
okay. And and so I would, well, I'll make the motion now.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your motion, please.
No, go ask your question first.
Oh, I'll ask it during discussion.
Okay. So I'd like to motion that we adopt the 2023 fiscal year budget as presented.
So, I don't understand. This is the budget.
Anybody care to second that?
Sure, I'll second that.
Thank you, Diana. So
But you're gonna add the $2,000 to this? budget?
yes, excuse me, I should have added that to my motion, so if I can amend my motion.
To make a motion to amend.
I'm making a motion to amend with, well, I could withdraw my motion, right? My original motion.
So I'll withdraw my second. I'll rescind my second.
Thank you, and I'll rescind my motion. And I will motion that we adopt the fiscal.
Before we make a second motion, I just want to ask, are the Woody Bridges badges included in this budget?
That's the trail challenge, the first item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tim. That was my only question.
So I will motion that we adopt the fiscal year 2023 budget as presented with the single addition of $2,000 for a recorder of minutes.
I'll second.
Any other further discussion?
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
It's my understanding that the Conservation Commission has a certain amount of money set aside within the town for possible purchase of property or whatever. I'm back on the Greenway project and how we can further this, whether we need funds to do that or whether that is a separate item, nothing to do with I guess it would be our working budget. This would be called our working budget. But
So-
if we need funds for furthering the Greenway program or project or whatever you want to call it, there is absolutely nothing in this budget that helps us to do that.
Barbara, can I ask for one clarification before I answer that question? Because I can tell you exactly the dollars in it. and when you say you're back on the Greenway project?
When I say I'm back on it,
It just
Did-
means she's thinking about it.
Just
I'm
thinking,
back thinking about
thinking
the
about it.
Greenway.
Thank you,
Yes,
thank you. Just,
yes.
Diana, did you want to jump in before I?
Well, I don't know what the amount is in that budget, but with regards to certain parcels of purchase, there are several grant opportunities through the state of Connecticut that we can utilize. I think it being specific as to which parcel and which project relevant to the Greenway we're looking to purchase would be something
Yeah.
we could use those grant dollars for.
Right.
I simply asked whether we need to have some discretionary funds to be able to pursue the possibility of purchases or of acquisition, shall I say,
Yeah.
for
So-
open spaces.
Yeah, I had intended to talk about this at some a little bit length, and at the next meeting in January. The actual dollars amount, there is a fund, it's called the Open Space Acquisition Fund. There is currently $72,254.86 in it. And I have some other notes around that in policies. Um, it is a separate fund. It doesn't belong to the Conservation Commission. It belongs to the town. Anything that we would recommend to acquire would go to the town, and the Board of Selectmen acquires it. It's not something that they have delegated down to us. So it is held separately by her. I do agree in general that we need to find a way to increase that fund. Certainly what Diana spoke to um, uh, about grants is something that we need to be pretty good at, I believe. So that and we need to understand how timing of grants, so when the land opportunity presents itself, we can both leverage funds that may be available in the acquisition fund and the grants to start to bring together the ability to purchase that. That's part of what we might talk to the land trust about. I
And
think
also
that-
to Tony, I think this is a good topic to bring up with
Yeah,
Tony Genovese, because he's the one who
exactly.
understands it, and that's how we can get educated. But
Exactly
you're
right.
really,
Again,
but Tim, what you're saying is that it's not part of this budget. This
It's
is the
not
work
part of this budget
separate.
line.
And we don't need to entertain that right now.
but I wasn't even asking about the actual funds for acquisition. I was asking about working on acquisitions, not the actual purchasing funds. I know that's a totally separate thing. But just getting to the point where we might be able to, writing a grant, for instance.
Yeah,
It
that,
it doesn't come free.
no, it
it's the
doesn't.
middle of it.
And those
That's
are,
what I'm talking about, the actual, shall we say, office work or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, for being able to then find and acquire things. And
Well,
there
it-
isn't a penny in our budget for being able to even start doing this. That's what I'm questioning.
no, that I not sure. I think we can start those discussions without money. I don't think we need money to start to talk about how to do that. There may be monies, Barbara, that you're thinking of that I haven't thought of that would be helpful to move that along. I'm just not, I haven't thought of it, and no one had proposed it. So yes, there is no money for those types of discussions in the budget. Um, so
Something we can think about for our budget for fiscal year 24.
yeah, as we get better organized and to move forward on that front. Okay, other discussion. There being no other discussion, we'll call the motion.
Wait, let me just say one thing. What I've heard from Tony Genovese is that if we want to, we can, when we get a budget, we can move it to other things too. Like, okay, we won't do quite as many badger budget. Woody butter.
It's not
We'll do
complete.
20 of those and we'll
We're
put,
just gonna
you know,
call them Woodies. It's fine.
the Woodies, we'll have a few less Woodies and $100 for a secretarial, you know, help. So I think we have that option if it was to come to pass, Barbara. So that
Alright.
gives us a little bit of wiggle room.
The motion being
I
called,
don't want to disc Woodies though.
the motion being called, we'll do a roll call vote. Paul?
Aye.
And the motion, excuse me, I should have asked Diana to read the motion once more.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, a vote on the table to approve the motion to adopt the budget, the proposed budget for fiscal year 23, with the addition of $2,000 as an item for a recorder of minutes for the Woodbridge Conservation Commission.
Paul?
I just want to say one other thing. Within that
Oh.
Woodbridge, the recorder of minutes, they deal with the WebEx, they deal with filing. The job description can be what it is for other commissions, but we'll record it as that. That makes sense.
And may I make a suggestion? Can we amend that for those that don't have the budget in front of them, who may be reading the minutes, to make that a total of $3,450? Is that necessary?
Okay, so you.
Val, I
That would
I
be
would
the
say it's
math,
not.
yeah.
These are when I transfer this to the Excel form, it will add it up for them.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to bother the members of the commission with the large details of the Excel. So I typed that out on just a Word document. So not necessary.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're about to start the roll call. Paul?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Kate?
Oh, wait,
Aye.
hold on.
Kate?
I'm an I and Sharon was an I.
Yeah, I got Sharon. Barbara? Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you. Diana?
Aye.
Val?
Aye.
And I am an aye. All right, so the motion passes.
And one
Are
more
we-
thing, Tim, before we close the meeting, we voted for the amendment to send the information to the Board of Selectmen. Are we also voting that happens? In what time frame is that going to happen? My expectation it could happen tomorrow. Is that accurate?
I typically try to work on post meeting items on the day after the meeting. So
Okay.
I will attempt to do it tomorrow, but if not, it should go out by Monday.
Okay, thank you.
I think the other thing we wanted to talk briefly about, if I'm not correct, is the Merritt Avenue. There is one time-sensitive piece to that.
Oh, I would like to quickly suggest that we do a site visit and get ourselves a little more educated. I was given a large map of it. We meet.
Oh, good
talk
for
about
you.
the map. We meet, talk about the map as a group, and then go there. As in wetlands, we did that, and it was much more helpful than trying to discuss it now from a little PDF file. And maybe we could do it on a Saturday morning or something that was convenient for people.
I agree with that idea.
Yeah. So let me lay out at least what's in front of us. If I can grab my notes.
The one thing while you're getting your notes, Tim, the trouble I had with looking at that, the drawing you sent, is it didn't show what was going to be built there or what was being proposed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I would, and that was, you're making your comment all on what I sent today? Or is that comment about the one-page GIS view that I sent with the agenda last week.
I think it was the one that you sent today. I thought that didn't
Okay.
show the development.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so let me talk for a minute as background, just so the level set the background and what the need is short term, and you know, if it's, we can talk about. Um, so this is I was notified by Chris Sullivan and also by the engineer surveyor John Paul Garcia of a subdivision plan that was submitted. It's for 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue, and it's for 14 duplex units. Okay, it is a privately owned parcel. There are multiple owners. So unlike the country club, it's not town property, and we really, developers have to go through a process. There are wetlands on the parcel, so they need to go through Inland Wetlands Agency. And that is the step at which they are at now. They've just, the application was received last evening by Inland Wetlands. After it goes through Inland Wetlands, assuming it gets approved and with whatever modifications, it will go to Town Planning and Zoning, who will review it for compliance with code. And in theory, if it complies to code, they will grant the permits for the development. So this is not selling a piece of property, it doesn't have to go before the town, et cetera, et cetera. The opportunity that we have, and it's probably best for you to look at what I sent with the agenda, which is an aerial view of where that property is, and it's the triangular piece of property outlined in yellow that's sort of towards the top left. There is a river that runs through it. That is the West River. The area to the right of the river is some wetlands, and then there's a 100-foot exclusion zone beyond that. The town's planning and zoning requirements may, and I stress may, require that up to 10% of the parcel be open space. There is no open space in the original plans, and that is why Chris Sullivan alerted me. We can, and what I'd like to do is to go back to the developer and say that we, as the Conservation Commission, are interested that there be open space on that parcel, and get the ball rolling with them to try to start to think about that. Whether they put it in or not will be, up to them at this point. Our action in the future will be go to Town Planning and Zoning and make them aware of our interest that it be open space. In fact, if we do, and then we'd go to Planning and Zoning and hope they would support that and turn this may into a yes, developer, you need to make 10% open space. Now, my take on this, and it's a little bit ahead of some of the things I think we'd be talking about early next year. Barbara, you brought up the Greenway and start thinking about the Greenway. We've had to divert our attention because of Arbor Haven away from the work we started to do on the Greenway 3 months ago, 3 or more months ago, and we were going to come back to it. But the river is and the West River is part of a greenway already. It's the West River Greenway, runs from New Haven up to Bethany and over to Hamden. And there is a lot of interest in there is a pathway that's being built out of New Haven, comes almost all the way up to the Merritt Parkway before it stops. And then we have greenway paths that start up by the Darling House And so there's some connectivity that needs to be made. This, being able to put a pathway along the West River here would be helpful in that endeavor and open up access to the river, a small little section of river, but access nonetheless, and a start to the having our Woodbridge Greenway be connected into New Haven, which has been a goal, and then further on. So, what I'm looking for, and I don't know that we need a site visit to say this. I wouldn't think so. Is that
Well, Tim, actually, can I interject a little when you're ready? Let me know when you want it. 'Cause
Yeah, I
I
was
just
just about to tie up. What I just wanted to do was, coming out of tonight is to convey our interest to the engineer surveyor that we're interested in this having 10% open space.
Tim, can I ask something? Excuse me,
Sure.
Sharon, just in conveying our interest. When I sold a piece of my land,
Yeah.
a few years ago,
Yeah.
there was no question. There was a requirement for 10% of the land to be
Well,
set aside as open space. When and how does it become may?
I received just this afternoon, and I don't have it with me. Oh yeah, I do have it with me. It's chapter 8, what I believe is the planning and zoning regulations, but it's not noted on the piece of paper. I received this from Chris Sullivan. Have I gone away?
No?
Oh, good. I've chapter 8, open space, park and recreation area trails, subsection A. And I believe again, this is talking about the town planning and zoning. The commission may require that a tract of land be subdivided, that a tract of land to be subdivided shall reserve open spaces, park and recreation areas at the proportionate rate of 10% of gross acreage to be subdivided. So.
Shall.
So what you're quoting there is saying that I was lied to, I guess. Because I was told
I think most the common, and I was given that understanding too, Barbara, that there's a 10% requirement. Well,
Correct.
it's a town planning and zoning decision to require it, apparently, because it says may require. So
Well, there shouldn't be much difficulty in this space because there's a 100-foot setback, so there's space for it.
that's right. And
The question I have is, I wouldn't assume it's a foregone conclusion of where we think the trail is, because doing it right along wetlands is quite destructive of the wetlands. And we should think about whether things need to be disturbed to create that, because that would be somewhat destructive. And I also think there's another area where a trail could be that would help access the another trail and connect it to another trail over West Rock. So I think we should go with an open mind and look at the land and walk it.
Yeah,
to see
I don't
what
think
is
we're
the best.
I don't think we're prescribing where the path is. I think we're saying we're interested in getting.
Yeah, no, I'm totally. I think
10% of open
we
space.
can. Yeah.
And I would hope it would go up to the boundary of the 100-foot. They can't build there anyway. So it's not a big, effort for them to say, okay, we're going to deed this to the town. So it should be, this is easy. Shouldn't need any money for it. And it's just a matter of making our will, our desire known, and lobbying with the TBZ to make sure that they do the right thing and bring this to fruition.
Shouldn't we request land that's not wetlands, that it can't be, wetlands can't be built on anyway, so it's not like requesting land that's wetlands, we're saving anything. If we request land that actually is buildable land, then we're actually saving some land as opposed to not saving anything.
Well, and that's the 100-foot area I'm talking about, Paul. That's
No, but that's Paul's talking about in addition to that, because that's already protected. Can we protect other?
Yeah, the 100-foot setback is already protected. They can't build there anyway, so they're not.
Yeah.
They're not filling open space if they're giving us land that they could never build on anyway. It's
Well,
it's not built.
I would talk to John Paul Garcia, who I know, and have some relationship with, and I'll try to find out from him. Hey, is 10%, more than just the wetlands and the immediate surrounding area, or less, and figure out how to make the ask. But I mean, asking for the 10% would be the minimum, and then trying to get as much as they can't build on, because it's exclusion is what I think we would like to do.
Tim,
think it
can
would
I
be better to
clarify
ask-
this?
Wouldn't it be better to
I'm gonna-
ask wouldn't it be better to ask Chris Sullivan or somebody that's not an
Yes.
agent and a developer?
I totally agree with that. Asking, I mean, I appreciate John Paul, but he's like asking his interests are different than open space. He
Well,
wants to create a
and
development.
well, and what would you ask, Chris?
Where
It's
she
the same
recommends that
question.
if we can get 10%, if we can, in addition to what's restricted already as wetlands, can we get another portion that would be specifically given for conservation?
Well,
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
right?
it's better to have an independent person's opinion on it. I know John Paul also, but he is also the agent of the developer.
Yeah.
So I'd be more comfortable asking somebody who's an independent person.
I mean,
Not the
Chris made a
developer.
comment to me that inland wetlands doesn't, I don't want to misrepresent what she said. She's, the inland wetlands she was referring to the commission doesn't concern themselves with open space. And
Exactly.
we, I think she's said to me already, we can ask for 10%. So, and that's what we would ask for.
At least 10%.
Yeah.
So you're
Well-
saying, you're agreeing with Paul that in addition to the restricted or the restricted zone or of the wetlands, there's another percentage that we can ask for that is protected land. Correct? Is that what you're saying? Tim?
Yes, up to the 10%. I'd like to get 10%. That would be what I would try to do. Now,
Okay.
now,
May I say something?
if
This is
10%,
Valerie.
let me say
10%
this,
of
if
buildable
10% only gives us the wetlands and not the more buildable area in the production zone, then I would want to get more than 10%. I would try to lobby for that. Diana?
Sorry, Val was trying to say something.
Oh,
Thank you. I did have the chance to go by there today on Merritt Street to look at the lot. It was sort of dark at that time. I have a couple of questions. When you say 14 duplexes, and sometimes people misidentify. So a duplex, are you saying 14 duplexes, which are 28 units? Or are they 7 distinct units and 14 altogether? But those are two different things.
7
And it
buildings,
is
right?
and the frontage of that parcel is narrow. So what they're going to do is probably go in and then have them on each side, the duplexes.
It's
But
14 units. Val, I have a map right here. It's 14 units and 8 are on one side and 4 are on the frontage of the other and 2 are set back.
But when you say 8, so is that one? Because actually on Merritt Street, they are building 2 duplexes right now. So when you say one duplex, is it 2 different units in one? Is that what you're talking about?
Let me just clarify what I see.
I guess I'm trying to
14
calculate the entire number of units.
It's 14 buildings.
Okay, 14 buildings, so that makes 28 units.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all thinking and visualizing the same thing. So that's 28 families. Yeah, thank you. I have a very small, mine was very small. So we're visualizing 28 different families living in this, on this plot of land. Not
That-
14, 28.
Right.
That
Okay.
is the current proposal, yes.
And
Okay.
it's 3.5 acres.
Okay, and it backs up to the Mirror Parkway, I think, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I thought that area always flooded. I thought that piece of property always flooded, but it'd be interesting to
has-
see it in person.
It has a very large retention basin and there is a flooding issue. So you're right, Paul.
Diana?
Sorry, it's 10:28 and you're gonna lose your minute keeper
Yes.
because I'm gonna
Yes.
fall asleep.
So, so I'll ask, can I, just consensus, I can go ahead and tell John Paul that, so he can convey to his client that we are interested in are going to be talking to the planning and zoning at the appropriate time of getting 10% open space.
10% buildable land open space.
Paul, I don't know that that's the requirement. I think wetlands are considered open space.
You can
So
ask for it.
yeah, I certainly can ask for it, but that
Well, my only point is that they're not giving you any value or anything toward the regulation if it's built land that's not buildable, and it's, it's not costing them anything because they can never do anything with it.
well, right. That's why they should be willing to give us 10% open space, because I think most of that 10% is unbuildable.
Folks, I think we need to take a gut check moment here. If we think this conversation's gonna go on anymore, then I think we need to have a special meeting about it. It's
I agree.
10:29, it's a 3-hour long meeting at this point. What's the plan?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Since there is no discussion on that type of motion,
So, is there a vote?
is that a voting motion? I don't think.
Don't have to vote on it.
Diana, help me. Is that a voting motion?
Don't have to vote.
A majority. I
No.
move. Well, no, my sheet says that's a vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's not a roll call motion, sorry.
Yeah.
So do we need a special meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
And,
Okay,
and I
so-
request that we send around a when to meet survey where everybody can populate times that they're available.
And I will volunteer to set that up because Diane did it last time, Diana, and
Oh,
that was
thank you,
very
Kate.
nice. And you're doing the minutes, so I will send that out tomorrow.
Wow, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, thank you.
You have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.